Oh, you look a little bit unmotivated, Ludo. You alright? Your plus 12 pistol not doing it for you? Oh, well, try this. Well, it's the same gun, it's just the UI element is purple and fiery. Eh? Is this doing it for you? Eh? Oh, Jesus. But why isn't this working? Why do so many developers try to use loot in such a baseless way, repeatedly misunderstanding what actually makes loot satisfying in the first place? Well, let's dive into that. Come on, Loot. Leave the gun. Welcome to Design Delve. As designers, there are many different ways for us to reward our players. Currency, gear, tings.
Me like tings.
Yeah, me too, because we all like tings. It's primal. But as simple as this first seems, many developers still misunderstand extrinsic rewards, repeatedly shoving the same copy-pasted systems down players' throats even though they've been proven sickened by them. The main problem is, it's very easy to think of rewards on a surface level. Extrinsic rewards, in their most basic form, are external elements such as items, gained power or achievements that the player earns from interacting with the game's systems, meant to motivate the player to keep them playing, but the problem is that it's not enough to simply give a reward and hope that keeps the player engaged, because in reality, it can do the complete opposite. All of these misguided looter shooters are trying to emulate a design commonly seen in MMOs like World of Warcraft, the fabled carrot on a stick. As you progress and complete any form of content, you're rewarded with items with numerical stat bonuses to allow you to access harder content. This process repeats itself indefinitely in a loop as new content is released, the player never quite able to reach that carrot, forever chasing but forever being incrementally rewarded, keeping them in this chokehold of gratification. This is a very cynical way of looking at WoW's loot systems, but it's what's kept it going strongly for nearly 20 years. So looter shooter devs look at this and think, wow, yeah, if we take this simple formula and then copy paste it into our games, it must work wonders, right? Well, without the correct context, this can cause a whole host of issues. For example, in the recent Unalive group Kill Your Childhood, they used this MMO gear system as their main form of extrinsic reward to try and hook players into this never-ending live service, and I'm sure you've seen this in many games before, but where all of these looter shooters screw the pooch is with their loot's frequency. You can't give the player a million weapons and expect that to be satisfying, because loot is about the journey, not the reward. For a reward to feel meaningful, there has to be a journey to obtain it. And no, that journey doesn't just mean having one extra branching path for the player to explore to find 10 extra gold pieces. Oh yeah, good point. Bonus design tidbit from Ludo. With these little branch paths, developers will commonly use something called a reward reversal reveal. It's when you walk into a room, see that there's no loot for your efforts and get disappointed. You then turn around to leave and now the loot is visible on your journey out. This valley of disappointment and sharp peak of excitement is incredibly effective. Yeah, a cheap trick to be sure, but now that we've shown you, you will see this absolutely everywhere. You've obtained the debuff Cursed with Knowledge. Wait, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, for a reward to feel meaningful, there has to be a journey to obtain it because of something called juxtaposition gratification. Juxtaposition gratification is a design technique where the player first needs to feel weak to eventually feel powerful or rewarded. For example, it would not feel satisfying to load into a game for the first time and just one-shot everything in sight. Regardless of how satisfying that game feel was, that feeling would quickly dissipate because there's no mechanical challenge. But if you first struggle against these enemies, then along your journey find rewards throughout the world, new weapon, levels, or even develop personal skill, you can come back to overpower those enemies that once gave you so much trouble. That juxtaposition of power is what makes acquiring new loot or overcoming challenges so satisfying. You must first feel weak to eventually feel powerful, and I honestly need to make an entire episode dissecting this concept because I personally believe it's one of the sole contributors to making any game satisfying. Yeah, fair enough, I digress. World of Warcraft's loot is entirely based on juxtaposition gratification in cycles. They start off by doing this with their leveling systems, but once this dries up, they then focus on incremental loot upgrades building up the player's power, but then slowly but surely reduce the drop rate of meaningful items in later content, not through low percentage chances, but by requiring specific classes to seek out precise stats on items to play optimally, making their choices even slimmer. This resets the juxtaposition gratification loop, causing the players to stagnate, but when those items finally drop, it feels like a gift from the gods. A lot of looter shooters understand this on a surface level, but then go too far with the gap. For example, in Suicide Squad, their most powerful items, the Infamy weapons, not only have an insanely low drop chance, but also only drop in the extreme regions of its endgame, sometimes requiring players to replay the same mission 10 to 20 times to get a specific item to drop. Again, not too dissimilar to WoW's structure, where in its endgame content, they only drop a handful of items between its party members, but they're nearly always useful to someone and then can be traded. But here, they attempt to bombard the player with useless rewards alongside the lack of meaningful ones, leading to every mission being this sea of disappointment. But when a useful item finally drops, you're still disappointed because of what this reward actually is. Extrinsic rewards can fall into two simple categories, reflective and substantive rewards. One makes you look backwards and the other makes you look forwards. A reflective reward is one that makes you reflect on what you had to do to get it. A trophy, a unique cosmetic or achievement. These are commonly tied to in-game challenges. The Mage Tower skins in World of Warcraft are a perfect example of this. There were these certain skins that could only be obtained by completing a difficult challenge mode. These were a sign of prestige at the time and are no longer available. The gratification in reflective rewards are timeless if the challenge to get them was meaningfully measurable. Whenever I look at one of these Mage Tower skins that I gained years ago, I am immediately reminded of what it took for me to get them, reflecting backwards on that journey. On the other hand, a substantive reward causes you to look forward into your journey's future. Be it as complex as a new ability or as simple as an upgraded piece of gear, these rewards enable you to further your goals and unlock more content. Metroidvanias are nearly entirely based on this philosophy. They deliberately frame inaccessible content early on, and then give the player a substantive reward, a new ability that allows them to access that content that they so desperately wanted to play before, making all future blockades become exciting possibilities, encouraging rampant exploration due to this substantive reward structure. Now, it is possible to combine substantive and reflective rewards to create one mega reward, one that is both challenging to obtain and then permits power, but this is extremely delicate to balance. As seen with Suicide Squad, if you screw with this too much, it can be disastrous. Firstly, their reflective rewards could be considered the skins. Well, most of them are gained from the Riddler challenges, which are honestly pathetic to complete, or obtained by the shop, so I guess their main reflective rewards are combined with their substantive ones in the Infamy weapons. But the issue here is that they're only obtainable by completing its endgame content, not through a challenge, but a grind. They attempt to combine these rewards to make something ultra satisfying, but it just begets boredom and resentment because they've attached them to a percentage chance rather than challenge. Not to say that grinds can't lead to effective reflective rewards too. Just look at World of Warcraft. What? It's a good example. Again, well, they have mounts that have a stupidly low drop chance. I'm talking about 0.01% chance of dropping. These are so satisfying to get and show off because they are purely reflective. They're not attached to progression or power whatsoever. If this mount was also attached to doing optimal damage or locked off potential future content, you would be screaming every time it didn't drop. And that's what Suicide Squad has done. They've combined their reflective and substantive rewards into a percent chance in an attempt to keep their players engaged, but because of how it was managed, it just pushes players away. At the end of the day, it's all about the player's journey and respecting their time. You want to give the players substantive rewards so they can pursue the reflective ones. That's the loop, that's the carrot. That's how you motivate the player to progress and keep playing extrinsically, but if that loot is just motivating them towards a game with shitty gameplay, story and level design, well then you're up shit creek without your plus 10 paddle, no matter how much loot you throw at them. But what do you think? What makes acquiring any extrinsic reward rewarding for you? Can you think of an example of a reflective reward in a game that stuck with you personally? Let us know down below because we would love to discuss this with you. Right, you've got to find a new way to feel rewarded without being given loot every 10 seconds, Ludo. Can I suggest fighting games? You'll stick to Dead by Daylight. Right, I've got to get you off that shit, Ludo. It's bad for you. Oh, God. Right, say goodbye. Alright, well, I'll see you in the next one, guys. We're going to be covering Hello Kitty Online. Bye.
This video is sponsored by Last Epoch. Uncover the past and reforge the future in this upcoming time-traveling action RPG from 11th Hour Games. Built for genre veterans and newcomers alike, Last Epoch will have you mastering over a dozen unique and frankly rad-sounding classes like Void Knight, Beastmaster, and Blade Dancer. Branch out across tons of skill trees, dive into the community-revered crafting system, and hunt for rare and powerful loot by yourself or alongside your closest ARPG pals. Last Epoch is easy to learn and hard to master, just like playing the saxophone. And Last Epoch's deep and continually evolving endgame means that there's no curfew on this dungeon crawl, unlike my saxophone playing. I have to stop by 7. Pre-order Standard, Deluxe, or Ultimate Editions today to make sure you have access to tons of goodies like the Temporal Guardian armor set, pet cosmetics to spruce up your favorite companions, and of course a copy of the game itself. That's important. Start working out those index fingers because Last Epoch comes out of early access on February 21st, 2024. That's this year! Head on over to Last Epoch's Steam page to pre-order your version of the game today and prepare for your next great ARPG adventure.